Steve Bustin is the National President of the Professional Speakers Association and a business communications specialist whose current and recent clients include Goldman Sachs, London Stock Exchange, University of Sussex, Wired Sussex. So can you please join me in welcoming Steve?
Great, thank you very much. Good evening. Seriously. Good evening. That's more like it. Hurrah, thank you. Thanks, Steve. That was a real clarion call, quite frankly, for what this city is capable of. And I absolutely echo what he says about we need to spread the word. It is up to us to get that message out there. Who was at the event in October when we were up at Eagle Labs? Okay, a number of you. That night I got you talking like cavemen, if you remember. Got you all saying, ugh. Tonight we're going to talk about communications, but one of the things we are going to do is we're going to play bingo in a minute. So while I'm going to ask the cast of Ocean's 11 stood along the edge there, if they could just do me a favour and start passing out pens, and I'm going to pass out some bingo sheets, which you will be filling in a minute. Great, thank you very much. So those will come along as we're talking. Just pass them along. You don't have to hand them out to each individual. They can pass them down the rows. There we go. Okay, you'll find out. You'll get more of those in a minute. But what I wanted to do tonight really was ask this question. He says, pointing it that way. Let's go back. There we go. Are you listening? Because I said we're going to talk about communications. Communication really is about that. It's about the listening end. And so many people think it's about what they want to say. And actually, it's about whether people are listening to you. Because you can talk to your blue in the face, and we've got a mic that keeps dropping out, haven't we? That's really irritating. Never mind. You can talk to your blue in the face, but actually, if nobody's listening, what's the point? So, I'm going to start with some theory. I'm going to start with a model. This is the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. Anybody come across this before? It's quite a well-known model. Yeah, a few people. And I will say up front, this has been critiqued. Some people have sort of poo-pooed this model a little bit. This was developed in 1948 by Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver from the Bell Telephone Company. And it was really a model to measure the efficiency of telegraph wires and radio signals. But it's now been adopted as a model for communication. So just to talk you through it, the sender, that might be you. It might be your organization. It can be an individual, can be an entity. You encode a message. And that's about how you write something, how you say something, the language you choose to use, the tone of voice you choose to use. And we're going to explore that in a little bit in a few moments. You then have to choose a channel of communication. Now, that might be email. That might be holding a meeting. It might be giving a presentation. It might be sending a letter. Does anybody still send letters? I have to say, if you want to make a communication impact, handwrite something and send it by post. People love it. That message that you send is then decoded by the recipient. So they'll put it through their own filters, which might be their own mood, their prejudices, the language they do or don't understand, and that gets the receiver. Now, the interesting bit, though, is there is a feedback loop, so the receiver needs to let the sender know that they've heard them. Because if you're the sender and you get no response, you have got no way of knowing whether your message has got through or not. The other problem is what we see down the middle here. What we call noise. Now, noise could also be called interference. It's the stuff that stops your message getting through. Now, that could be, if you're on a phone call, it could be a really poor signal. That's noise, that's interference. It could be somebody's overfull email inbox. And actually, your email just gets lost in the noise. In a meeting, it could be that you're boring the pants off people, and they've gone to sleep. That is also interference. That is going to stop your message getting through. So noise is an important part of of communication. And certainly when I'm working with organizations on why their communication isn't working, we spend a lot of time looking at channel, i.e., are you communicating in the right way? And then looking at the noise. What is interfering with that communication? We also spend a lot of time on the feedback loop. A lot of organizations don't have those feedback loops in place, particularly, interestingly, internally. Is it better without the mic or with the mic? With the mic. All right, we'll stick with it. If it keeps dropping out, we'll keep with it. So, you do need to have a feedback loop in place. How do you know that the messages you are putting out, or that your organization is putting out, are being received? So that is the Shannon Weaver model. But what I want to do tonight is look at a couple initially of channels, and then we'll look at encoding. Let's start with an old favorite, email. Who here would like to receive more emails? Yes, perfect, I'm glad to hear it. You're joking, no, I know. None of us really want more emails. We all have more emails than we can cope with already. And yet it is the default that we all go to for communications, particularly in the business environment, and quite often within the internal environment. I can't remember who it was who said that when you send an email, what you're doing is taking something out of your to-do list and dropping it into somebody else's to-do list. Ain't that the truth? There is something very cathartic, isn't there, about, you've got this email sat there and send, gone. And some poor bugger at the other end is going, oh no, that's just, I've got to deal with that now. So email is not a perfect type of communication. Who here, is anybody here a proponent of Inbox Zero? Who here, few people manage Inbox Zero. I have to say, I aim for it. I try to do it by the end of the week. But let's just find out what volume of emails people are dealing with. Think about your email inbox as you left it when you left the office, or as you checked it in the last 5 minutes on your phone. How many emails do you currently have in your inbox? If it's fewer than 10, show of hands. Well done. If it's between 10 and 50, show of hands. Okay. If you've got more than 100 in your email inbox, show of hands. Okay. You know what I said about noise? There it is. Okay, be honest. Who's got more than 1,000 emails in their inbox? How many of those are you ever going to reply to? So you've got some poor sender going, I have no idea whether my message has been heard or not. Some of those emails may be important, but you've got to start thinking about how you're going to filter out all that noise, because that volume of emails is noise. And I would actually say, if you've got that volume of emails, take everything from older than a month and delete it. Quite frankly, take anything older than a week and delete it. If it was that important, they'll get back in touch. That's also my top tip, actually. When you go on leave, when you put an out of office on, in your out of office, say, I will be back from leave on, I don't know, let's say the 20th of February, at which point I will be deleting any emails that have arrived in my inbox while I'm away. If your message is important, please resend it after that date. And it immediately frees up that first day back in the office where normally you are sat there sifting through thousands of out-of-date emails. How many people are now sat there going, absolutely no way? A few people. Try it. It actually really does work. And most people will respect it. It's not a major problem. Another top tip with emails. Who knows where the phrase to CC comes from? When we CC somebody on something. Where does it come from? Shout out. Carbon copy. So, quick explanation for anybody under 35. We used to use typewriters. I started my career as a journalist. I used a typewriter. When you were typewriting, you would have your sheet of paper, and if you wanted to make a copy of what you were writing, you would put a piece of carbon paper behind it, which had ink on one side, a blank piece of paper behind that, and everything you typed on the front piece of paper would reproduce on the second piece of paper. You could, if you were a really hard typist, get away with a second carbon copy, but not a third. Because actually that third copy wouldn't get through. And I think you should treat emails the same. I did a big piece of work a few years ago with TalkTalk, the telecoms company. and their internal communication had just fallen apart. And it became clear that the problem was that they were all relying on email, and everybody was CCing everybody on everything, with the result that nobody was reading anything. Because actually, none of the emails felt urgent. None of them felt as if they were addressed to that person in particular. And in fact, what was going on the whole, was arse covering. Oh, if I see somebody on this, then it's not my fault if this goes wrong. Because everybody was informed. But of course, nobody was informed because nobody was reading those emails. And TalkTalk then instituted a rule within the organisation that if you found yourself CCing more than 3 people on an email was not the correct channel of communication, that you should find another one. And they started looking at internal chat systems. Actually, I'll tell you, the communication system that worked best for them was putting up posters in the lifts. Because everybody read them. When you're stood there desperately trying not to talk to anybody else in the lift, you will look for anything you can possibly read. So people were reading the notices in the lift. And weirdly, that became their key form of communication internally. So they would start putting up their stats for this week and sales targets in the lift, because that's where people were reading them. So if you are CCing lots of people on lots of emails, stop. Do you need to CC everybody on everything? Because chances are you're reaching nobody. And there are other tools which I think are better. Where are we? What else have we got? Oh yes, start your email with a call to action. If you are emailing people with a number of points, bullet point them, or even number them, and start your email with a phrase like, here's the information on X topic. I need a response on points 1, 2, and 3, preferably by the end of the week. Be direct. Say what you need, and you are more likely to get a response, because people can see immediately, rather than trying to sift through huge amounts of data and information to work out what you want from them. It's a neat way to actually get people to respond to emails when you need them to. And don't say, I need a response ASAP. Ain't going to happen. Because all you're doing is dumping something onto somebody else. Give them a realistic time frame, but just say, I need responses on these points. You can also say, I don't need a response on this. This is for your information. And it gets you away from all those emails saying, yes, thanks. Read it. You don't need that. It's all express traffic. Anybody else got any top tips on email before I move on? Anybody? Does anybody here not use email? No. It's ubiquitous. We all use it, but most of us use it really badly, and I hold my hand up and say I am one of them. But I think there are ways of making it better. So, next channel. Meetings. We love them, don't we? Meetings. Well, okay, who has a regular team meeting within their organization? Okay, who has a daily meeting? Okay, who has a weekly meeting? Monthly? When was the last time you changed that meeting in any way? Because if that meeting is the same time after time after time, your staff aren't listening. Because they just go straight into, whoops, they go straight into that, oh, okay, same old mode. So if you want to have more effective meetings, my top tip on this one is to change it up. If you are sat in the same room every time, move. Use a different room. Change up the room. Change the furniture. Change the layout. Go for a walking meeting. Has anybody here tried walking meetings? A few people, yeah. I'm a big fan of walking meetings. Get people moving, get the blood pumping, get people talking on the go. I'm working with a coach at the moment. He and I will go for a walk. We came to the conclusion that actually our coaching sessions were more effective if we were walking. Now, I'm based at Platform 9 over at Tower Point. We will often walk from there. We'll walk down to the I-360, round the I-360 and back. Takes about 25 minutes. We have a really, really good talk. If you've got a group, taking them out for a walk will really shake them up. But actually what's lovely about it is groups, the dynamics will change. As you start walking, you might start off walking with one person, but one person's faster than another. You'll find yourself walking next to somebody else. Set a topic for discussion. When people come back, ask people what they talked about during their conversations. It's just that the dynamic is so completely different. And particularly if you're trying to get people to think anew, think creatively, think differently, it's worth trying. So try a walking meeting. The other one I just say is avoid presenteeism. There's a real culture in a lot of organizations of everybody has to be at these meetings. If you've got 8 people sat in this meeting who don't need to be there, because really this isn't pertinent to them, and they're in that meeting for an hour, that's a full working day you've just wasted. Have a think about the people who are coming into these meetings. Do they need to be here? Do they need to be here every day or every week? Could you summarize the output of that meeting in 3 bullet points that they will read in 5 minutes and then get on with what you want them to be doing, what you pay them to do? Give people the opportunity to opt out. If people feel that this meeting is not relevant to them, give them the option to leave, to go and do something more profitable, quite frankly. We've all sat through lots of dull meetings, let's face it. We know what that's like. So give people a get-out clause, don't force them to do it. Okay, let's move on. It's a fab picture, isn't it? I love this one. This is the feedback loop. You do need to be listening. You do need to make sure that there is some way for any communication you put out for you to receive a response. Now, internally, that might just be getting people to chat to you. If you are the boss, if you are the manager, if you are in charge of a team, make sure you have an open door policy. If you do sit in a separate office, keep the door open, don't shut it. Encourage people to come in. Encourage people to come to the coffee bar with you. Have a chat with them. But that feedback loop, the obvious one for most organizations when they're dealing with customers, is social media. Be aware, though, that social media can overwhelm really fast. If you're being talked about a lot, brilliant, but you can waste hours trying to respond to everything. I would say observe the chatter, respond to the inquiries. It's very easy just to get sucked into the conversations and the chatter about your organization. We all like being talked about. But look for the posts that are actually querying something or asking a question, and make sure that you respond to those. If people ask a question of your organization via social, they are looking for a response. If they don't get one, it will really damage their feelings about your brand. So you do need to be monitoring it, but don't get sucked into the chatter. Just respond to the things you need to respond to. And I'd also just think about when you are talking with staff, how you are allowing staff to feed back to you. Are you accessible? Can they talk honestly? Do they have, if they can't talk honestly to you, who can they talk honestly to? Make sure that you're getting honest feedback from people. Right. This is what I want to talk about encoding, and this is where we're going to get to the bingo cards. One of the big issues is that when you start writing an email or you start a meeting, you will be encoding things by the very words you choose to use. And they may be influenced by the mood you are in. If you've had a good day or a good night, they may be influenced by your perceptions. They may be influenced by your prejudices, even. And language is important. There is an awful tendency for us now to slip into what I think we can politely call business speak, but what I tend to think of as apprentice speak. If you hear a candidate on The Apprentice use a phrase or term, drop it from your lexicon immediately, because it is guaranteed to be a cliche. And this is the problem with business, is we have ended up talking in jargon and cliche. In particular, this whole idea of these words and phrases that we think make us sound like we know what we're talking about, but actually make us sound like we're on The Apprentice. So, what we're going to do is we're going to play bingo. And we are going to play a game that I originally called Business Buzzword Bingo, has now been rechristened as Business Bullshit Bingo. What I would like you to do, on your grid of 9 squares, and by all means talk to the people around you to find 9 words, I'd like you to fill those squares with 9 words or phrases of business bullshit. And I'm thinking here about thinking outside the box. Blue sky thinking. 110%. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think of as much business bullshit as you can. Talk to the people around you, compare with notes with them, Your time starts now. So you're looking for the words and phrases that make you cringe when you hear them. Think about The Apprentice. What are the phrases they use? Okay, time's up. What I have here is a list of business buzzwords or bullshit. This has come about. I've developed this list over several years of running this game. And this was done through, I used about 120 people as a survey, asking them for their worst words of business bullshit. And this is becoming the definitive list now. But actually, every time we play this game, we always add things to this. So I'm going to read this list. And if there's a word or a phrase that you have on your business card, you cross it off. And if you get a line of 3, you shout, house. And we have a bottle of wine for the first person to get a line of 3. So, I'm going to run through these at some speed, but we might have to explain a couple of them. First word that people hate, solutions. Solutioneering, that's even worse. Why is everything a solution? We provide technology solutions. Really? So does everybody else. It's a terrible word, it's a cliche. Strategic. Why is every plan now strategic? What's the difference in a plan and a strategic plan? Nothing. Leverage. Or lever, quite frankly. Monetize. Grow as a verb. We'll help you to grow this. No, you won't. Bespoke. We only provide bespoke training courses. So does everybody else. They're not bespoke. Framework. Client-centric. Customer-centric. Going forward. Let's park that. No, let's not. Holistic approach. 360-degree approach. Thought leaders. So is everybody else. Synergy. Blue sky thinking. Thinking out the box. Roadmap. Cliche. Strength to strength. One-stop shop. Everybody uses it, means bugger all. Degrees of uniqueness. We are very unique. We are quite unique. You are either unique or you are not. There are no degrees of uniqueness. Innovative. If you have to tell me you're innovative, you're not. Leading means nothing. Ticks the right boxes. Passionate. Now, this one's a real bugbear of mine. If you have to tell me that you're passionate about your customers, you're passionate about technology, you're passionate about whatever, you're not. I should be able to tell you're passionate from the way you dress, the way you act, the words you use. Passion should be intrinsic. If you have to spell it out, there's a problem. And likewise, creative. If you have to tell me you're creative, you're not. The number of agencies. Oh, we're a creative agency. Show me an agency that's not. Innovative, outcomes, deliverables, measurables, stakeholder, they're people, actionables, best practice. Cliche. Has nobody got a line yet? There's obviously clearly a lot of business bullshit being spoken around here. Win-win, bring to the table. Hey! We'll need that bottle of wine, I'm afraid, Steve. Okay, we'll finish the list. Proactive, touching base. Let's touch base. No, let's not. Not without washing your hands, anyway. Value proposition, centre of excellence, facilitate. Why does everybody now facilitate everything? On the same page, pushing the envelope, hold that thought. Diarise. Let's diarise that. No. And the old favourite, 110%. Any words or phrases that I should be adding to that list at this point? What was that one? Oh, circle back. Yeah, that's grim. That's horrible. Reach out. Awesome. I'm with you on that. It's not awesome. Take offline. Yep. Value added, yep, or value add. Socialize it. That's horrible. A meeting about a meeting. You know that's going to be bad news, don't you? Yep, absolutely. So the point really is that we tend to encode this jargon, this linguistic rubbish, quite frankly, because we sort of think it makes us sound like we know what we're talking about, and it really doesn't. All it does is confuse people. And that's when you send something out to somebody at the decoding end of that model that I showed you at the beginning, and they don't understand you. And that's the problem. So when you are writing, speaking, keep it simple, keep it straightforward. Make sure that you are not encoding things. Just because a word is something you're used to doesn't mean the recipient is used to it as well. So that's me. I would just say, think about the channel you're using, think about whether you need to change the channel you're using, and think about the words you're using to keep your communication as effective as possible. And then you really will get your voice heard. Thank you very much.
I'm seriously going to struggle to ever run a sales meeting ever again now.
Sorry.
I use all of those.